gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's September the 26th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day, presented as always by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And Matt, I don't know where to begin. Obviously, the news of the day is the news of the weekend, and just an absolutely stunning setback. Can't think of a better word for the Miami Hurricanes football program with Saturday's loss to Middle Tennessee State. I think caught everybody by surprise. I think we collectively felt, and by collectively, not just you and I, but I'll speak on behalf of the fan base, that afternoons like that were a thing of the past now for this program. Because the program's being run better, the coaches are better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But something happened Saturday, and it was very drastic and very pronounced, and there was really no question about the depth and severity of what we witnessed. The Miami Hurricanes football program did not show up on Saturday in any way, shape, or form. I've got a bunch of opinions on that. I'm sure you do. So let's start with your thoughts. What was going through your mind as you watched the way the events went on Saturday?
Listen, I'm not going to rehash. It's what every Miami fan felt is what I saw and wrote about. But as I sat back, really, it's not about what you felt when you're watching the game. It's when you finish the game, and I did watch some of it again the next day. And as you sort of reflect on it, you sort of form some different opinions than at the moment. And honestly, what I ultimately wound up forming in my mind was simply this. I think this was a message from the Miami Hurricanes team to Mario Cristobal and his staff that whatever they put this team through after that Texas A&M loss, this team is not mentally prepared to deal with the expectations that Mario Cristobal has for a championship caliber football team. And I could have saved Mario a lot of trouble and told him that this was not going to be the same mentally tough team he thinks he had, maybe when he left Oregon, or thinks he should have at a Miami program from when he was here. This is a team that's mentally fragile. And when you have a mentally fragile team, and you just start hammering them in practice or whatever they did. Obviously, look, I don't know what they did in practice, okay? They didn't let us watch. But whatever the heck they did, and I know Mario does not put up with losses, and I'm sure he was very, very hard on the team off that loss at Texas A&M. This is unacceptable. This is not how we play football at Miami. This is not the standard. I don't know what he put them through. But this was the team saying to Mario, don't do that to us again. We are not a mentally strong team. And now I don't know what Mario does. Does Mario say, okay, I got the message. Listen, let's just try to get back together and regroup, take a few days off. I want you guys to rest. I don't know. I don't know where you go.
I think they're going recruiting today. That's what, I believe that most of the coaches are going out recruiting today.
Listen, the bottom line is this game was a message to Mario Cristobal and his staff. This was not representative of the talent level Miami has. There's no other explanation for it. Middle Tennessee is a terrible team. They lost by 41 points to George Mason or something 3 weeks ago. The quarterback had never thrown a completion in over 50 yards in his 4 years at the program. Like this does not happen unless there's something else going on. This is not, and I pointed out a poor play design on a pass to Mario Cristobal, on a pass to, this is how disturbed I am by the game. On the first pass to Will Mallory, where just Will Mallory was lining up so close to Mike Redding and Will both ran 3 steps out, and one turned one way and one basically turned in the same direction, and Redding's man just came off him 2 steps and intercepted it. Like, that's a poor play design to that side of the field on a throw. There was other guys open on the other side. But, you could point to some plays that weren't great. But at the end of the day, Miami had way too much talent. there's not a single player on the other side of this field that would be a scholarship player at Miami today. And when you see these sorts of things happen, this is not all on bad coaching. This is not all on a lack of talent level. This is not all on game prep. This is on a team that mentally was sending a message to its coach. And you could see it from the first play. They just were not into it, man.
But
whatever the heck happened last week.
I don't understand what you're saying, and I want to make sure it's clear. Are you saying you think they did it intentionally, or that?
No, I'm saying that Mario Cristobal has a standard.
It was coming across like you thought that they had done it intentionally, which I didn't think is what you meant.
No. I'm saying Mario Cristobal has a standard that he lives up to, and he tried to push the team to that standard on that last week after the Texas A&M lost, and the team said, we can't do this. And when they arrived for this game, they were so beaten down.
They said they can't do it without saying it verbally.
They were beaten down mentally or emotionally. They just had nothing left in the tank to even compete.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Whether you want to call it intentional, that's not intentional. The coaches didn't intentionally want this outcome. The players didn't intentionally want this outcome. But what we saw was a message, a clear message, that what Mario did the week after Texas A&M is not something that's going to work with this year's team. This year's team is not mentally sufficient to handle the Mario Cristobal 3 hours of sleep, work your ass off every other second of the day standard of living. They can't do it. And Mario's going to have to adjust his expectations for the rest of the season with this team if they're going to win the ACC Coastal. He's have to understand you can't just run these guys ragged the next week in practice off a loss if that's what he did. I mean, that's what it looked like based on how they played. This team needs to be patted on the back and say it's okay. You lost the game to a decent team. You tried your best. Let's try to get them next time. Here's a good game plan. We have faith in you no matter what happens. Like, this is the mental team we have, and it is what it is, and it's not great, but they're still good enough on the field talent-wise to beat every team in the Coastal. And, Mario probably knows that, and Mario may have to adjust his coaching style to something that he's very uncomfortable with doing, which is with not accepting what the standard is that he wants at Miami, because this team is not ready for it. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know if it's clear or unclear. It wasn't intentional. The players didn't lie down and say, we don't believe in Mario. They were just beaten. You could see they were beaten down. They showed up at that game exhausted, not wanting to play, not happy, not having fun. And I have to think that came from off the Texas A&M loss, whatever happened during the week. It's the only thing that makes sense to me logically. I've been talking for 6 minutes. You tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. It's a danger zone for us, because when I say that, I get blistered like crazy that I'm making.
Listen, guys, just tell the truth. Who cares?
Well, I am telling you.
Just show about what you believe, not about caring what people say.
No, but that's the point.
I would have retired.
I know, but you interrupted me. I was going to make that point. So listen,
my job to
if I say what I think, which I'm going to, obviously, the angry Canes fan doesn't want to hear explanations. They want necks. Okay. They want Tyler Van Dyke's life ruined. They want Mario Cristobal taken out to the woodshed behind the Carol Sofer indoor. They want blood for what happened on Saturday, and it's not as simple as that. When I'm watching that on Saturday, I'm trying to. My mind immediately goes to why. Why is this happening? Okay, I thought about the Texas A&M game. I thought the team in College Station left it all out there. Okay, they didn't win. They weren't, good enough to walk out of there with a victory for all the different reasons that they lost to Texas A&M. But I didn't feel that it was due to any lack of effort whatsoever. I felt like they laid their bodies on the line, that they expended every ounce of energy that they had in that game. Now, I think it can be difficult for a team to bounce back from that 7 days later. I don't know that your body really recovers for several days. And we don't know what they did in practice during the week. But if it was intense and strenuous, like it probably was, that might have only had a compound effect, kind of like what you're talking about. But the team that I watched out on the field on Saturday at Hard Rock Stadium had nothing in the tank. Nothing in the tank physically, nothing in the tank emotionally. So that was the first thing I felt I was watching. The second thing I felt like I was watching was a quarterback in Tyler Van Dyke that was mentally beaten down. okay, has not been playing well. Things are not going the way they were supposed to go this season. And I think he's been trying too hard the entire year. He's throwing one of the most noticeable things about Jake Garcia going in the game on Saturday was the catchability of Jake's balls. I mean, Jake was throwing a soft football and delivering with great accuracy and precision. Not too dissimilar to what we see Tua Tagovailoa do for the Dolphins, but Jake was putting the ball on the money. The ball, wasn't coming like a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. It was delivered on time. It was catchable, and for the most part, they were catching it, and it looked a lot better than what it was looking like when Tyler Van Dyke was out there firing 95-mile fastballs over the heads of his receivers all night long. I mean, and then he would do it, and then he would be like, his body language shows like that he's in utter disbelief at how poorly he's playing. And on top of it, he had the comments he made about the fans. I'm sure he heard about that from everywhere. They were totally inappropriate. And he didn't have a lot of support in the stadium to begin with. And when you factor it in with everything else that has been going on in Tyler's life, and I wrote about it in my column, which is still on the website, the new coaches, new coordinator, new system, the NIL deals, the agents around all the time, all the talk about going to the NFL draft, Mel Kiper coming out and saying he's the number 20 pick next April, and everything, the NIL responsibilities and everything else. It might have just all become too much for Tyler Van Dyke to deal with. I mean, this is not the same kid that we watched nine months ago, Matt. So you take all that together, a team that has nothing in the tank, a quarterback, your franchise quarterback, who isn't playing even anywhere close to good enough to bail this team out of the mess that it was in on Saturday. I just, and then the coaching staff certainly was not on their game either, which I'll talk about right now. Like, when a staff is asked to work as hard as this staff has been asked to work for 9 months and has worked for 9 months, and all the sacrifices that they make with family, friends, wives, girlfriends, whatever it is, they sacrifice a lot, these guys, okay? They work very, very hard. Now, when you are getting results and things are going well, as a human being, I think you can reconcile that degree of commitment a lot better than when things go poorly, okay? And especially, Mario's not throwing the players under the bus. Mario holds the staff accountable as much as he holds the players accountable. And a failure like Saturday, to me, there might have been a little bit of a hangover from Texas A&M. Like, I didn't feel Miami was very well prepared for that game on Saturday, and it was shocking. And you see it in the most bizarre things, and like, I'm looking at, like, I think if Matt, if I said to you, who's the best receiver on the team right now, who would you say?
I mean,
you'd say Keyshawn Smith, right?
Who?
I'm sorry, I'm stumping you.
The best healthy receiver?
No, if I said to you, who's the best receiver on the Miami Hurricanes this year?
Yeah, Xavier Restrepo, obviously.
Well, no, but he's not playing.
I said the best healthy receiver. Yeah, I mean, there isn't a guy who's standing out right now, obviously.
No, but you would probably say Keyshawn Smith, right?
I don't even know about that. I mean, Frank Ladson for the first half last game looked better than any receiver they had. It's just,
I'm going to get to that in a minute, but I guess
overall,
most people would say Keyshawn Smith.
You would say right now Keyshawn Smith would have to be the most.
And yesterday and Saturday he had the kickoff return. Yeah. Okay, so I look at the Pro Football Focus snap counts, and Miami ran 98 plays on offense.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay, 98 plays. But a couple things jump out to me. Keyshawn Smith, who I believe is the best receiver on the team right now, only had 30 reps in the game. Now, I don't know if he's banged up or what. He didn't look banged up on that kickoff return. And he didn't look banged up on some of the catches he was making yesterday. He only had 30 of 98 reps. That, to me, the best healthy receiver on the team right now, played less than 1/3 of the plays on offense when you're struggling and losing the game. Now, how does that happen? To me, like, why? How does that happen? And then I start looking down, Frank Latson yesterday, clear attempt to get Frank Latson going more. He played 69 reps. Michael Redding played 75 reps. Okay. Romello Brinson played 58 reps. Okay. Keyshawn Smith played 30, if those counts are accurate. And we have to assume they are. That is baffling to me. And like, how are you supposed to overcome a situation like that if your best players aren't on the field? And you can't blame the head coach for this. Like, the head coach isn't managing the substitutions on the sideline and who's in the game. And if that information is accurate, like that to me is something's wrong there. Like, and I don't want to really be too judgmental of it because I don't know what could be wrong, but it just, the counts were weird. And the offensive linemen, the starters played all 98 snaps, Matt. Now, that's a lot. Okay. Now, they looked exhausted. They had no push the entire game. They couldn't gain 1 yard. That tells me that those guys had no legs. No, they either had no legs or no effort, because they couldn't move Middle Tennessee State. They could not pick up 1 yard when they needed to. So what I'm getting at is there were obviously some major things wrong the other day, to not only lose a game like that, but to play the way they did. And we will keep trying to figure it out. I think we would love to figure it out. It's very hard to figure out. But the bottom line is that was a complete organizational failure on Saturday, a complete organizational disaster. Not just Tyler Van Dyke, not just Mario Cristobal, the entire organization failed, okay? And it is a major setback. I believe, Matt, that the way Saturday went at Hard Rock Stadium negated 9 months of almost round-the-clock work that group collectively, players, coaches, support staff, etc., had put in the previous 9 months to get this program headed in a better direction and change the public perception of Miami football. I think they lost 9 months of work the other day, and now they are back to square one.
Well, I don't think you ever lose that, but I mean, look, it could always be worse. It could always be worse, right? You could be Georgia Tech, which fired their coach yesterday or last night or whatever. I mean, it could always be worse. So let's look at the people who are worse. All three teams in the country that are worse. No, I'm sort of hyperbolizing, but it's easy right now to look at the negatives because they're in your face and there are so many of them. But I mean, look, people who have been with the Matt Shodell doom and gloom society, by the way, you all owe your membership fees. I haven't gotten membership fees from a single one of you. But those of you that are in my society, I mean, it's not about one game this year. It wasn't never about this season. I told people, if you lose a game you're not supposed to lose, it is what it is. This is a long process. This is not a one-year fix. People hate it when I say it's still a majority Manny Diaz defense. That's just, team. That's a fact. It's still a majority Manny Diaz team. It's a shame that Mario Cristobal listened to Gary Ferman and brought in 12 transfers who were doing nothing, wasting all those spots when maybe he could have signed some more kids in the last cycle, targeted different players for this cycle, whatever. I don't know how many of them will keep spots sealed up on the 85-man limit next year, but I have not really seen a transfer outside of Akeem Messidor that I would keep. I know that some people would like, I guess Mitchell Agood and, I don't know who else you keep as a transfer right now that I would say is doing so great. Henry Parrish obviously was a major hit. So I shouldn't say that. But the majority of these transfers, it's like, like I told you at the time, Gary, These are not guys who are superstar players who are just saying, I want to now star for Miami. These are guys who it didn't work out at the last stop for the most part. Unless they're coming home, like Henry Parrish and Tyreek Stevenson. The other guys, it just rarely seems to work out. It does once in a while you hit, but maybe 1 out of every 5 or 10. Whereas in recruiting, you can get a much higher return, and you're not stuck with guys forever who can't go back in the transfer portal without having to sit out a year and their college education is over. But anyway, people don't want to hear about that. So I was off on a tangent. But they are laying the foundation for the future. And I said after the Texas A&M game, I said, I'm not so interested. Actually, I said before the Texas A&M game, I said, I'm not so interested necessarily in what happens in this game. Win or lose, I expected them to lose by a slim margin. I said, I'm more interested in what happens in the following game, because how often after a big win or a loss in a big game do we not see this team respond, and will it be different? I said, we're going to learn a lot in the next game. You can go back and watch it. I actually did say that on Good Morning CaneSport for those of you that are insane and watch every episode. So, this is what I meant. This is when I said that before the Texas A&M game, this is what I meant. We'll find out if the team actually is mentally tough. I wasn't sure. I was 50-50 on it. And it turns out that it was the wrong 50, the glass half full, that came about. So again, I'm not like overly sweating it. The concern is, how does it affect recruiting? And, we have a story up this morning, for instance, with Christopher Johnson, who says, yeah, this impacts me a lot, or at least impacts me, I should say, but it does impact him a lot. And Miami needs to show something now. They can't just keep losing games. Now they're in a corner where Mario has to figure out what this team's psyche is and what it needs to fix that psyche. He needs to become a psychologist, psychiatrist. I don't know the difference. One of them's an MD, one of them's not. I don't know. Whatever he wants to be. The MD version or the off the streets version. I don't know the difference. The 5-cent Charlie Brown person. He's got to be that person. Because if he's not, and they keep losing games in the Coastal, I assume all the commits will stick, but you're not going to see these major other prospects just flying into Miami's camp when FSU's season's going so well. And there's still these major programs chasing these top kids that can just so easily negative recruit Miami and point to Miami fans on Twitter saying all this negative stuff, which is another thing I was trying to express out there publicly, is just support the team at this point, because it's still Mario Cristobal's 4th game. You don't, I know there's been success at some other places immediately, the Michigan States, whatever. They're sort of the exception to the rule, and you sort of have to have a coach who actually did recruit and coach people up really well before that it just for whatever reason didn't work out for them there. That was not the case here. So if Miami fans have the patience, and the message was out here before the season, even in the first couple of games, that, listen, there's a lot of work to do, give us some time, then I think it would be a much better place right now mentally for Miami fans for the negative recruiting aspect of this. But I think Mario Cristobal and the staff potentially overestimated this team. I know they knew they didn't have the receivers, but I think they thought they had more than it turns out they had in their offensive line. I think it turns out they had more than they thought they had in Tyler Van Dyke. I think that they were confident the defense in the secondary was a major strength. All of those did not come to fruition. The running back core is decimated by injuries. And it's right now a little bit of a mess. And if the messaging out of Mario Cristobal in fall camp was, listen, I just got here, we need to fix this. This is a rebuilding. And I know you guys at Miami, you don't want to hear that word. But listen, this is the situation. I've taken over a team. I've analyzed the roster. It is not anywhere near what we need to do to even compete for an ACC title. Please give me this 4-year plan and I will get this right. But that's not what he did. And every expectation of every fan was that Mario's going to come in like that and work his magic and win 10 games in year 1. And because of that expectation now, fans are furious, and there's negative perception on social media. Recruits see it like crazy. You don't think other coaches are retweeting stuff to these recruits constantly? I talked to 2 recruits yesterday who were committed, who said the second Miami lost that game, they were getting hit up by schools they hadn't ever heard from. I mean, it's potentially a recruiting mess now.
Recruiting, yeah.
And it didn't have to be this way. I feel bad for Mario, because I know how, when other coaches coached here and they had a loss to an FIU or whoever, they would stand up in front of the media and they would sort of robotically go through stuff. Mario Cristobal, it was like he was attending, for lack of just a better phrase, like he was attending a wake, a funeral, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it was like he was facing a death sentence almost in that interview. I mean, he was literally looking at him depressed. I mean, he was barely above a whisper. For those who listen to the WQAM interview they did after the game, he was barely talking above a whisper.
I mean, think about like working at the rate that they've worked for 9 months and having it all come crashing down.
Right,
like
but that's not even the point. The point is nobody cares more than Mario. Nobody cares more than Mario to get this right. And he underestimated this roster. He underestimated its mental strength. He underestimated the amount of talent he inherited from the previous coaching staff.
Oh, I don't think that's true.
Oh, you think he thought this team was? You think he just thought this team was really, really good the whole time? And
no. Oh, okay, yeah, no. We're on the. If you're saying that, I maybe I misunderstood.
Literally what I just said. And if perhaps he had put the message out there publicly in the fall camp, which as reporters, Gary, you and I both thought there were holes on this team, and we publicly expressed them. Me more than you. Maybe the perception among Miami fans wouldn't be so angry right now. But listen,
I think what you meant to say was he overestimated.
He overestimated what he had. Yeah.
Yeah, you said underestimated. But
sorry. He overestimated the talent level, the amount of good players, the amount of depth, whatever you want to call it, the plans the coaches had for these guys that they would execute it, whatever. And the problem is in fall camp and spring camp, they call it good on good. But as it turns out, now that we know, it was bad on bad. When you have bad offense against bad defense, they both look pretty good because they're both making the same mistakes. And like one side's going to look good at certain times because the other side's making those mistakes. And when you're not tackling on the ground constantly, other than in scrimmages, which they weren't, which is okay. Most teams they call it thud now, which is fine. You have an 85 limit. You don't have that many great players. You got to sort of keep everyone healthy. I get it. But it's hard to gauge what you have sometimes. And it's obvious now that Mario did not accurately gauge what he has with this team, whether it's mentally, physically, athletically, across the board. But now he knows. Now his finger's on the pulse. And now he knows what he has to do. And he knows it's a much higher and longer and more difficult climb. But I personally still see the 2 to 4 year window as long as the recruiting is there. And Mario's one of the greatest recruiters in college football. And now he's got to just get it done. He's got to get it done. He's got to get Life Wallet to start really ponying up some money and get these recruits in here, coach them up. And that's the key to success. For fans who are so upset about this year, just believe me when I told you before the season, maybe 8 or 9 wins was probably more likely than 10. And right now that would be nice. They could still win 8 games. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. The Coastal's that bad. And, you just move forward from there. But I do think they still need to win 8 games because,
Well, I mean, it's like Texas A&M loses to App State and comes back and beats Miami and Arkansas. Like, it can happen. And it's going to be up to these kids to, decide they want it to happen. If he overestimated something, I don't think he overestimated where they are roster-wise. I don't think he knows where they are roster-wise. You had 21 players leave the program this year. I think you'll have another 20 players leave the program between now and the start of next season. This is a roster overhaul on steroids. Matt made a great point. The transfers are not coming through to the degree that you would like. But, Matt, I don't see them getting a chance to. I mean, Messidor, 34 snaps. Where's I'm looking for.
Well, remember, Messidor is coming off injury. So, I don't know how much they wanted to play him in the first place. But, yeah, I said last game the heavy rotation on defensive line was the next that needs to stop. With the secondary, the game before against Texas A&M, the secondary was so good. So it was sort of shocking to see how bad they were. It was like, it was shocking across the board what happened in that game, obviously. And I'm not sure it's representative really of the team. It's obviously not. Again, it was more of a mental representation than a physical representation, which is good news because if you can't do it physically, that's really bad, right? Because that just means you're not good enough. They're good enough.
Mitchell Agude, 39 snaps. All right, Antonio Moultrie, 7 snaps. Darryl Porter, 20 snaps. I said Messidor, 34. So, you're making a great point that the transfers aren't making the impact that you would like to see based on the commitment to take transfers. But they're not really getting an opportunity to make an impact either. And I think one of the things that the coaches must look at is, are they playing too many guys? I mean, listen, I know Leonard Taylor's hit or miss. I get it. He doesn't always do what he's supposed to do.
Now you're on my side with Leonard Taylor all of a sudden?
No, my point is this. He had 26 snaps yesterday, man. That's not enough. That's not enough for Leonard Taylor.
It was the same percent as the game before. I mean, that's just what they're doing.
Yeah, but it's not good. You can't. They're not going to be able to keep doing this. Darryl Jackson, 34.
That's what I said.
Darryl Jackson, 34 snaps.
Get your own ideas, Ferman. Stop stealing my ideas.
No, I'm not. I think that they're over rotating. I mean, they're just over rotating. They got to get their best players on the field for most of the plays.
This is exactly what you didn't say earlier in the year. I mean, I agree 100% with you. 100% what you're saying is correct. I'm glad you were following the Matt Shodell Guide to Football 101.
Well, I think now they know who their better players are, and I think they gotta ride with them more. I mean,
I said before the game, it's Darryl Jackson and LT have to play 80% at tackle, and Messidor and Agoud at ends at 80%. Like that's my front four, 80% of the game. Yeah,
and Jafari Harvey seems to be playing pretty well.
Harvey's playing well. I'll give you that.
Yeah, he was the highest. He was the highest graded defender, 88.7 by Pro Football Focus this week. He only played 39 snaps. So your best defensive player only played 39 snaps of.
Well, remember Harvey. So on third downs, I'll put Harvey at end, and I move Messidor inside. But again, you have to have a 20% rotation. So yeah, I mean those guys can certainly get a lot of reps. All five of those guys, no doubt.
I'm trying to very quickly here take a look at how many total offensive plays. So Middle Tennessee had 61 offensive plays. So I mean, your best player, if there's 61 and he's playing 39, he's playing like 2/3 of the plays. Okay, but I can't believe Jafari Harvey's tired after 39 reps. I can't believe Darryl Jackson is tired after 34 reps. Okay, same with Messidor, 34 reps. I can't believe he's tired. Those were your three best defensive linemen in the game yesterday, and their reps were in the 30s when the total plays were in the 60s. Like, to me, that's not going to cut it. And that's the first adjustment that I think they need to make is stop rotating so much. Make sure that your best players are on the field. So I don't know if they see it the same way, but that's something that has been popping out to me. So, we'll see what happens there. The quarterback situation, Tyler Van Dyke, Jake Garcia, obviously the angry Cane fan, Tyler Van Dyke out of there. Okay, you're playing like garbage, dude. You just cost us a victory. May have cost us two of them now with Texas A&M lumped in. You got to go, Jake Garcia in. And they expect Mario Cristobal to make that decision, and he might make that decision. But benching Tyler Van Dyke is not like something that you do on a whim, man. You got to give that a lot of thought. Like, you're creating a whole lot of drama on your football team when you do that. You're talking about benching a guy that had been being projected to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL draft. Some people are going to think you're scapegoating. What is it going to mean for future quarterbacks? That it's going to be used against you in recruiting. There's a lot of issues involved in doing that if you're Mario Cristobal. And I don't think, Matt, that's as easy of a decision as people seem to think it should be.
Well, you're asking the wrong guy, because what did I tell you midway through the second quarter with Miami down 2 touchdowns, Gary? What did I say to you?
I think you said he's got to put Jake in.
And what did you say to me?
Yeah.
You said you got to give Tyler more time, which Mario agreed with you, and Josh Gaddis agreed with you.
Yeah.
And Matt Shodell, as usual, was right. And Mario Cristobal, as usual, no.
No, I mean, I think they handled it right.
That is what we said. That is what I said, because I just saw I saw Tyler from previous games. I knew where this was heading. I said to you, listen, Miami's going to lose this game if they keep Tyler in. You need to put Jake in now. And you said you need to give Tyler more time, which I understand why, because you're starting a whole controversy. And maybe Tyler gets things going the next drive against a really not good defense, and for a Miami level offense.
Yeah. And they did move the ball at the beginning of the third quarter.
Yeah, they did.
And I think it was Redding dropped that ball on the sideline.
Well, Redding's been a bit of a major disappointment, honestly. So, I don't understand why. It's like when he's open, the ball doesn't get to him. And when the ball gets to him, he drops it. It's weird, man. He's starting every game. I don't know. Did he even have? Yeah, he had 8 targets and 2 catches for 28 yards with 7 yards after the catch last game. There's just something not quite right there. But they don't have the receiving bodies. I don't know. I don't know what they do. There are so many roster issues depth-wise right now on this team that I really think that Mario Cristobal honestly needs to spend the next 2 weeks just patting guys on the back and saying, listen, we're going to get it right. Whatever you need mentally, physically, if you feel like you're already worn down physically, like we will give you time off. We will, whatever it takes. You tell me what you need. He needs to talk to every single player on offense and defense who has a role in this team and say to them one-on-one in his office, please tell me what you need to make you happy, to make you excited to play on game day, and what's missing. He needs to sit down to every single player and ask that question. And whatever they give him back, if it's a different answer from every player, I don't care. Whatever he's been doing as a team, treating everyone the same, isn't working. And this might be that kind of team, which you get once in a while, which you never want to have, but they have it where each guy needs to be treated differently. And maybe this guy needs a day off. And you have to let the team know, listen, you are all struggling right now. You are all not performing up to your abilities, and we're going to try this. It's, it might be crazy, but let's just give it a shot. I met with every one of you. I'm going to try to, help you each to achieve what you need in your life and what you need with your bodies to get everything right. And we're going to try this. Like, that's what I would do if I was the coach. I'm not an expert, but that's what I would do, because when you see guys just hanging their heads and like the season's already a nightmare, you can see it in their eyes. You have to do something different. And to me, that's the only thing you can do right now is meet with each one individually and just be super nice about it and just say, we need to get you happy and need to get you playing to your best. What do you need from us as coaches? What do you need? Do you need time off from practice? Do you need extra treatment? Do you need us to deliver meatloaf at 11 p.m. to your dorm room? Do you need to go hang out with your friends and miss curfew? I don't know what will make these players happy. But right now, if I'm Mario, I would do all of it. Like, if that's what will make these players excited to play on game day, if it's staying up partying with Miami fans and then going straight to the freaking stadium and not even going on the team bus, I'd be like, fine, let's try that. Like, what's the harm? You just lost to Middle Tennessee, bro. Like, I'll do anything at this point.
Yeah, listen, if an ice cream party works, do it. Yeah, they got to change the mood. Got to change the mood in the room. No doubt about it. This is a beaten up.
This is the exact kind of team that needs to take a 2-hour practice where they show up for practice and there's 3 team buses waiting outside to take them to the frickin' Venetian pool and let them splash around for 2 hours and have fun and just go back to campus and spend the rest of the day doing whatever with no team meetings. Like,
a little mental rehab. There's no doubt.
This is what this team needs. And I hope Mario recognizes this is not a team that right now needs to be practicing even harder and being on sleds even more and doing extra conditioning because they look so tired. I don't know that he actually recognizes what I said. My inclination is, unfortunately, he's going to work them even harder. But, maybe there's a part of Mario that I don't know, because the Mario I know will never, ever let his foot off the gas. But I think he needs to, call me crazy. I think he needs to.
It's a mentally and physically beaten up football team right now. So we'll be talking so much more about all these things as the week goes forward. But I believe the coaches are spending the bulk of their time today recruiting and just trying to sort of get the mood going back in the right direction in that regard. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but first let's hear from our friends at LifeWallet.
We here at LifeWallet take security very seriously. Our data security team is working constantly to make sure that your data is not accessed by anybody who you don't authorize.
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah, I'm
Excuse me, sir. Thank you.
I have a conversation, and he's thinking about it, and I'll be talking to CC. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
We use leading technology standards like biometric data to make sure that only you have access to your data and your identity is protected. LifeWallet gives you access to your entire medical history and information at the touch of your finger, so that it can save you time and can save your life.
Data transfer complete.
All right, so I mentioned that a lot of the focus is going to shift here in the short term to recruiting, and we'll have a ton of coverage on that this week. We got a few stories on the website today. Let's start with the story that Matt mentioned earlier on Fort Lauderdale Dillard running back Christopher Johnson Jr., a guy that Miami wants very, very badly. And Chris admitted, Matt, and people read it in the story, but that game did affect him. And Ole Miss seems to be doing very, very well with him, and it's going to be a tough battle moving forward. Miami's going to have to convince Chris Johnson that he can make a difference in this not happening anymore.
Well, Miami needs Christopher Johnson. What bothers me is he said this loss affected him, and then in almost the same breath, he says he knows where he's going pretty much. So, if he knew where he was going, it was Miami, then the loss probably wouldn't have affected him, right? Which I don't, this is maybe reading a little bit between the lines, because I really thought Miami was in a good spot with him, even though I know Ole Miss had made some huge strides with him. So, based on the interview yesterday with him, not overly optimistic anymore, more of a 50-50 deal. And I think Miami's got a lot of work to do with him.
Yeah, and then that's just one of many battles that's going on. We also have a story on the website today with Micah Mays, North Palm Beach Benjamin School wide receiver, who is committed to Wake Forest at the moment. Wake Forest almost beat Clemson the other day. They're having yet another Wake Forest type season where they're one of the surprise teams that, not just in the ACC, but in college football. So we've got an update on where Miami stands with him. Wake has done a really good job recruiting him. Miami's trying to make inroads.
And how does he not know he has an offer already? I mean, they need to offer him, let him know he has an offer. Stat. I mean, you need every receiver that's talented, that's interested in you, that's really high level that you can get. And he's one of them.
Yeah.
Does my voice just go higher and higher as this show goes on? I think it does. I just raise octaves.
We also have stories with Ray Joseph, who's working hard behind the scenes to hold the recruiting class together the best that he can. Ray's all in with Miami. And a similar story with linebacker Malik Bryant, who's right there with Ray as a high-profile member of this recruiting class, trying to help the coaches hold things together. So we've got those recruiting stories today. We will have many more as the week continues. We will be reporting on a lot of these coach visits and things like that.
And by the way, so I posted on the Storm Center yesterday, was it, I guess, late morning, just some of the tweets from some of the commitments expressing their support for Miami, that they plan to stay in the class. And then I got a text, I was reaching out to recruits all day yesterday. That's sort of what I do on Sundays. And so one of them texted me that you may find this important or not. He texted me. He says, there was no group text or text from the coaching staff prompting our tweets. That was all individual, and we all really feel that way about the Canes. So I don't know why he felt the need to tell me that coaches didn't tell him to send those out. I never thought they did. But I guess it's good that the coaches didn't force these poor commitments to send out that how happy they are to still be Hurricanes, which they are and which they should be. You should still be proud to be a Hurricane if you're a commitment. I mean, losses happen, bad losses happen sometimes, shocking losses happen sometimes, and it's how you respond. And we're going to find out, how Mario responds, and if this team can get its act together, they better, because they got North Carolina up next, but they got a couple of weeks to figure this thing out.
Yep. All right, so lots more coming during the course of the week. We thank you guys, as always, for starting your day out with us today. Sorry that the subject matter is, kind of depressing and somber, but, it is what it is, and everyone's got to deal with it. The team's got to deal with it. The coaches got to deal with it. The fans got to deal with it as well. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We thank you for joining us today on Good Morning CaneSport. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.